Hey everybody, Patrick Hostis here. So I thought it would be a good time for us to talk about, are you prepared for what may come in the future? We can all see right now how the stock market's in free fall. The division in America is probably at the highest point it's ever been, with the exception of maybe right before the Civil War and later in the 60s maybe. But I think we're even more divided now than in those times. And there's multiple reasons for that, but I don't really want to go into right now. But, so a lot of different things could happen. The economy could completely collapse, and that could lead to some very hard times. Martial law could be declared for some reason. A civil war could break out, especially with the left and their love of gun control. Who knows how that would possibly play out. And then on top of that, you got natural disasters. There's been an awful lot of earthquakes lately, so all of us that live on the West Coast are very susceptible to those. So there's a lot of different things to be concerned about. And the possibility of something really bad and traumatic happening in the United States is very high at this point. So I just wanted to talk to you about a couple things that you should consider. Like right now, we're in a windstorm, and it's actually supposed to pick up here in a few hours. So probably my power is going to get knocked out, which it was knocked out a couple days ago. I live pretty far out in the woods, so it happens all the time. It's not that big of a deal. But, I have a generator, so I'm able to keep power going. Sometimes it's a couple days before they can get our power back on, or longer, so that's a good thing to have. You got to think about things like that. What if you're without power for a long time? Do you have candles? Do you have the ability to cook food? Propane cookers, things like that. Food. Do you have canned food? Things like that you could live on for a while. Things that don't require a lot of preparation. Water. Water's more important than food. You won't live without that. You can't live without that, not very long. So where would you get water, drinking water, and things like that if the shit hit the fan? Where would you go? I have a bunch of water purification tablets. There's multiple lakes around here, plus in western Washington it's, rain's pretty plentiful, but yet you would still have to be sure that the water's sanitized and, able to be drank. So those are just a couple of considerations. I mean, there's a lot more, and what I'm trying to hit on are the things that people don't always think about. For example, what if you're not able to get to a hospital? What if something happens? You got to have the medical knowledge, or at least the ability to try to look up and see what you can do. So I always suggest that everybody get books like this. If you can see this one here. And this is a guide that will tell you a lot about pretty much any kind of medical condition you might be facing. Anything from bites from different animals, to joint problems, to gunshot wounds, to blood transfusions. All of it can be found in books like this. Another type of book I really like to have is like the U.S. Army Survival Guide. There's a lot of good things in there. Especially about like what types of food or plants are edible, not edible, and it goes through pretty much every single type of environment that you'll find. Talks about what snakes are deadly. I mean, just a whole bunch of different knowledge and things that you may not think are that important right now, but if the shit hit the fan, it might be nice to have this type of stuff in your bookcase. Now, what is the most important thing of all, in my opinion? America has the Second Amendment, and there's about 500 million guns or so in the society. And the simple fact is, if the shit hits the fan, 911's not going to show up to save you. So you need to have weapons in order to defend yourself and possibly to hunt. If you're in an area where you're able to do that, you need to get food. So there's a billion different opinions about what type of guns everybody needs and things like that. My rule of thumb has always been I wanted to be able to have a pistol and a rifle for every member of my family. That's just kind of the rule of thumb that I've used. So I tend to like Glocks as a sidearm, the 9mm, Glock 19s, 17s, things like that. Rifles, I like assault rifles as they call them. AR-15s are a bit expensive, but they are extremely good weapon, extremely powerful, and you can pretty much set them up any way you want for long range, short range, whatever you want to do. AK-47s are good rifles. I have AK-74, things like that. So those are, fairly good rifles, but you don't have to, do that. You could get a Mini 14, you could get, pretty much anything will do. But you want something with some oomph to it. You don't want a 22 rifle. That's not going to do very much. So you at least want to have something with a little kick to it. Shotguns are a good one. Those are great for home defense, and again, for hunting. You may have to hunt, ducks or who knows what else, so you can always use those for that. And ammunition is a big issue. I suspect that the gun grabbers are going to be trying to make it harder and harder to get ammunition. So I tell everybody to try to get into reloading if possible. If you're not able to do that, then I suggest you buy ammunition and store at least as much. I mean, personally, I would store as much as you possibly can. Especially if you're going to be at one location. And for the rifles, I advise, if you're using magazine-fed rifles like AR and AK-47, I suggest that you have at least 6 magazines for each one of those weapons. So you're able to carry enough rounds, to deal if you have to fight your way out of something. Those are just some general guidelines, but, a million people have a million different opinions. But really what it comes down to when it comes to weapons is what you're comfortable with, and it also depends on the state you live in. Like if you live in a socialist shithole like California that doesn't believe in the Constitution, I think you'd be lucky to even get a BB gun legally. But if you live in other states where they still have a semblance of an understanding of what the Constitution is, you shouldn't have too much of a problem. It's just a case of money at that point. So those are just some things to think about. Now going back to the medical thing, you also want to have a few items here. Let me show you a couple things that you may want to think about getting. This is a combat application tourniquet. So if something ever happened to you where you're hitting the arm or the leg and bleeding out, you definitely want to have this. And this is a tourniquet that you're able to put on. This was designed for the Army, or for the military and law enforcement. But you can put it on by yourself. So you don't require somebody there to help you do it, which is, of course, helpful if you're by yourself and bleeding to death. And you basically put it on, and then you can tighten this little stick all by yourself. And that's it. You want it higher than that. I'm not trying to do a real demonstration, but just trying to show you a little bit about what the cat looks like. And another item that you may want to get is, pull it out here, is an Israeli bandage, which is a pressure bandage. This is what it looks like. So, and it has this little catcher here, so you can go ahead and wrap it around your arm or leg or wherever you're wounded by yourself. It's a scary topic to think about, if the shit really hit the fan and law and order breaks down and everything, and, violence breaks down, there's no more police, no more, nothing, who knows. But I mean, day by day, our country just seems to like to tear itself apart, and I don't see it abating anytime soon. The media is having too much fun doing it, and the sick, worthless, corrupt politicians are getting their rocks off by doing it. So I don't think it's going to stop anytime soon. So the best thing you could do for yourself and your family is to prepare. And really think about, where you live at, and think about the things that I discussed in this video. Where would you get water? Where would you get this? Where would you get that? Do you have enough ammunition? Do you have this? Do you have that? Do you have medical supplies? Do you have books, training, all those type of things that you would need? I mean, just like there's not going to be cops, there's not going to be hospitals, So, I mean, some of the medical stuff I even have the stuff to do blood transfusions. That's another thing you'd want to think about. Do you know the blood type of all your family members? That may become necessary if you have to do something that extreme like a blood transfusion, or, it's just a good rule of thumb to know the blood type of yourself and all your family. So if something, God forbid, like that ever happened. So anyways, these are just some things to think about. This windstorm hitting us today just kind of got me into that mindset. And you know, every time I watch the news in this country, it just gets worse and worse and worse and worse. So I thought, you know what, it's time to do a little video about preparation, just to get everybody into the mindset and to thinking about it. I love prepping. I mean, honestly, I think it's fun. I've been doing it for years. So oh, and there's another thing to consider. Let me show you this. So it's my cat Ashy. So a lot of people always think about, you know, food for their family and all that, but you also have to think about your pets. They're gonna have to eat too, and if you're not able to get food for a long time, you know, just something to think about. So I'll do some more videos like this that go a little bit more in depth, but this is just kind of an introductory one, and I just kind of wanted everybody to get in the mindset, you know, a little introductory into prepping. So more to come on this. This has been Patrick Hostis.